Hello and welcome back, my beautiful buddies. So, today we are going to start with the Act-wise story or the explanation of the play A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. But before that, I would love to tell you that A Doll's House is a three-act play, right? And it was published in 1879, and the play is concerned with the lives of middle class Norwegians in the 1870s. So the story is based of the people of 1870s Norwegians, right? So remember that. And now we begin with the story. All right. So talking about Act 1, it largely concerns Torvald Helmer, who's a lawyer, and his wife Nora. They have been married for 8 or 9 years and they have three children, two boys and a girl, right? So the play begins on a Christmas Eve when Nora had just returned home after having made some purchases in connection with the Christmas festival. She has brought a Christmas tree and some Christmas presents for the children, for the nurse, and for the maid servant. So now you will be able to know the character of Nora from the things she's doing. So listen carefully. Helmer asks her if she has spent a lot of money. Nora replies that they can't afford to be a little extravagant at this Christmas because now that he has been appointed the manager of a bank, he would be getting a fat salary. Helmer says that he is yet to take charge of the bank as its manager and that the fat salary will start coming only 3 months after that. He then urges her to continue to be economical in spending money on household needs. At the same time, he gives her a little extra money for Christmas. From Helmer's manners of talking to Nora, we find that he is very fond of her even though he tries to impose his own will upon her. He addresses her by such pet names as my little skylark, my little squirrel. When you read the play, you will come to know. We also find that he is a moralist. He advises his wife in a solemn manner never to borrow money and never to incur debts. He has also advised her not to eat macaroons because sweets would spoil her teeth. However, Nora loves sweets and eats them secretly. After that, we see there is a visit by Mrs. Christine Linde. She's a friend of Nora's school days and she's come to see Nora. They have not met They've not met for years, right? So Nora receives her friendly, courtly hand, and from the dialogue which now ensures between them, we learn something about the past lives of both the women. Christine has been forced by circumstances to marry a man of wealth whom she did not love. She had found it necessary to marry him because her mother had at that time been bedridden and she had two younger brothers also to look after. However, her husband had died soon afterwards and his business too had gone to pieces after his death. Christine had therefore been faced with great difficulties in maintaining herself, her mother, her younger brothers. But now her mother is dead and her younger brothers are grown up and can therefore look after themselves. You getting it? Now, feeling lonely and having no purpose in life, Christine has come to the city in order to look for a job. Having been aware that Nora lives in this city, she has now come to see her in order to seek her help in getting a job. Nora promises to speak to her husband about Christine's need for a job. Now, after that, we come to know about the big dark reality of Nora's life when she confesses all that to Linde. Nora's own past life had not been very comfortable or happy either. 8 years ago, her husband had fallen critically ill and she had been forced to borrow money secretly and without telling her husband in order to take him to a warm climate under medical advice. She has regularly been paying monthly installments to her creditor Croxted, but in order to do so, she had to save every penny and has been denying to herself many things that she could otherwise have been able to buy for herself. However, she has no regrets. In fact, she is proud of the fact that she had been able to save her husband's life by having borrowed money in order to take him to Italy, where they had stayed for a year or so. Then, as the story moves ahead, the two women are talking to each other. The man called Crockstead comes to see Helmer and is admitted into Helmer's study. Mrs. Linde tells Nora that she had known this man many, many years ago when he was a solicitor's clerk in the town, when she had been living. Nora tells her that this man had got married, but that now he is a widower with several children. Just then, Dr. Rank, a close friend of Helmer and Nora, and a regular visitor at his house, joins the two women. He tells them that Crockstead, the man who has just gone into Helmer's study, is morally corrupt. Dr. Rank describes Crockstead as rotten to the core. A little later, Helmer also joins these groups after having seen off Crockstead. Nora introduces her friend Mrs. Linde to her husband and asks him to arrange for a job for her. Helmer promises to give her a job in the bank of which he would be taking charge on the New Year's Day. Helmer, Dr. Rank, and Mrs. Linde then go away, and Nora is left alone. Remember, this is a play. I'm trying to explain you in terms of a story. So when you read the play dialogue wise, you'll understand what I'm trying to say, how they go, how they come in, right? So we are now going with the first act. And the first act continues with Crockstead's threat to Nora on the basis of her act of forgery. Nora was alone and now she goes to play with her children when there is a knock at the door and Crockstead comes once again, this time to meet Nora. Actually, Crockstead is the man from whom Nora had borrowed money 8 years ago and to whom she has regularly been paying monthly installments against the loan. Crockstead has been working for some time in the bank of which Helmer has been appointed the manager. But with Helmer as the manager of the bank, Crockstead's job is in danger because Helmer does not have a good opinion about this man. Crockstead has already met Helmer about his job, but Helmer has not given him a favorable reply. Crockstead now comes to seek Nora's help in this matter. He tells Nora that she can save his job in the bank by recommending his case to her husband, but she tells him that it would not be possible for her to influence her husband and that she can therefore be of no use to him. Crockstead thereupon says that he has a weapon in his possession against her and that he will use that weapon in case she does not prevail upon her husband to help him keep his job in the bank. Crockstead then explains what he means. Now, here Nora seems very, very confused. So, Crockstead explains Nora and reminds her about the bond. He tells her that she had signed a bond in order to get the money from him on credit. It had been necessary for her to have a bond signed by somebody who could stand surety for her for the repayment of the loan. She had said that her father would stand surety for her and that she would send the bond to her father for his signature. After a few days, she had given the bond to Crockstead with her father's signature. However, Crockstead had discovered the disparity in the bond. The date on which her father was supposed to have signed the bond as surety for her was 2nd October, but her father had died 4 days earlier, that is, on the 29th September. So, how could a dead man have signed the document? Right? So, this was the question that Crockstead asked Nora. He then says that the obvious explanation for this disparity is that she herself has signed for her father. Nora admits that she had signed for her father. Crockstead tells her that in signing for her father, she had been guilty of forgery, which is a criminal act. So Nora says that her father had been seriously ill at that time and that she had not thought it proper to send the document to him for his signature. As Crockstead had demanded a surety for the loan, she had herself signed for her father. Crockstead says that she had been guilty of fraud. Nora says that she had badly needed the money because her husband was critically ill at that time and had to be taken away to a warm climate. Crusted. Now, here you see it is a dialogue going on. I'm reading out to you how the conversation is going on between Croxted and Nora. Croxted then says that she does not seem to realize the gravity of her offense. He then tells her that he himself had been guilty at one time of an act of forgery and that he had suffered heavily for having been guilty of it. He goes on to say that in the eyes of the law, forgery is a serious crime. Nora says that no law can be unjust as to ignore the motives and circumstances behind a criminal act. If her intention in forging her father's signature had been to save her husband's life with the money that she wanted as a loan, no law can punish her. Croxted says that the law takes no account of motives and the crime remains a crime no matter what motives behind it. Croxted then says that the choice is hers to make. Either she should prevail upon her husband to let him retain his post in the bank, or he would make a public disclosure of her crime of forgery. Then Croxted goes away. Now Nora is feeling much disturbed mentally. When her children come again to play with her, she sends them away because she is feeling very upset on account of the threat which Croxted has given to her. She tries to get busy with the Christmas tree and she has yet to decorate for the evening celebration. But Croxted's threats keeps coming to her mind and making her feel uneasy. Now Helmer returns to home and asks if anybody had come home to see him or her. Nora then tells a lie, saying that nobody had come. Helmer says that he had just seen Krogstad leaving their house. Nora then admits that Krogstad had come and he had remained with her in the house for a minute or so. Helmer asks if Krogstad had sought her help in connection with his post in the bank. Nora admits that this was the case. Helmer mildly scolds Nora for having talked to an undesirable man like Croxted. He also scolded her for having told him a lie by having said that nobody had come to the house in his absence. However, he also begins to fondle Nora in order to show that he is not annoyed with her. Helmer then gets busy with his office papers while Nora gets busy with the Christmas tree. Then, after a brief pause, Nora speaks to Helmer and asks him what kind of dress she should wear for fancy dress ball, which is to be held the next evening in the neighbor's apartment upstairs. He replies that he would think over the matter and let her know what kind of a costume she should wear for the purpose. She then asks Helmer what offense Krogstad had been guilty of and why Krogstad's post at the bank is now in danger. So now here she is trying to talk for Krogstad because Krogstad has threatened Nora. Helmer replies that Krogstad had been guilty of forgery, which was a very serious offense. Nora says that Krogstad had perhaps been compelled to commit forgery by circumstances over which he had no control. Then Helmer says that it might be so and that he would not like to punish a man to the extent of dismissing him from bank just because he had been guilty of one single offense. Nora feels happy to hear this, but Helmer goes on to say that not only had Krogstad committed an offense, but that he had escaped the punishment for that offense by means of a cunning trick. It was the use of this trickery which showed Krogstad to be morally depraved person. Helmer then goes to express his views about the evil effect which such a man would be exercising upon his family. If a man has a crime on his conscience, he would always be telling lies, putting on false appearance. Such a man would spread disease and infection all over his household. Such a man would be an evil influence on his children because the house of such a man would be full of evil germs. Helmer says that he finds it impossible to work with a man like Krogstad and that he would feel literally sick in the man's presence. Helmer then goes into the study. Helmer's attitude clearly shows that to Nora that he has bent upon dismissing Krogstad and Nora was trying to talk in favor of Krogstad. That goes a waste. Now Nora is feeling terribly upset after talking to the husband. Not only has she failed to save Krogstad jobs from him, but she has been told by Helmer that a person with a crime on his conscience is sure to exercise an evil influence upon his children. Helma's words are now ringing in her ears, and she asks herself if she too is unconsciously exercising an evil influence upon her children because she, like Croxted, has been guilty of the criminal act. Indeed, the thought terrifies her, and in a brief soliloquy, she expresses the state of her mind. Does corrupt my children. So this is the soliloquy I'm going to read out for you. Corrupt my children, poison my home. It's not true. It could never, never be true. In other words, she is now torn by a conflict. Far from having been able to help Croxted, she is herself faced with dilemma. She now thinks that it is not even proper to let her children come near her. While the maidservant asks Nora if she should bring the children, Nora replies that the children should be asked to stay with their nurse and should not be allowed to come to her. Helmer's words have thus produced a profoundly disturbing effect upon her. And here the first act ends with the negative thoughts Nora is having. So, this was the end of the first act. I'll be taking down your questions if you have in the comments, and we'll be starting with the next act in the next video. Till then, take care, bye bye, and keep learning.